Hello everyone, my name is Imbu, and as I promised from my previous video, I was actually going to make a walkthrough tutorial, and I lied. So this is going to be a walkover commentary, which is a little different because from a tutorial, obviously I would go into details about how to draw certain things, but when I first recorded this video, there was no script or anything, so I kind of just randomly said things as I drew, and obviously when I typed up the script, from what I heard, it was all over the place, and so I decided to make a new script, and then from there I realized, I was like, oh my god, this is I'm talking about the head, but I'm already 5 minutes into drawing the hand, so that also didn't work out. So this is why particularly it's taking me forever to draw or to come out with this video, because I was I don't know what to do with the script because obviously it's all over the place. So I just decided to do a walkover commentary, but in the future I will do actual detailed tutorials, so you can be on the lookout for that. Anyway, so in my original sketch that you see here, I actually did this illustration. It's actually one of my very first sketches or illustrations that I did in 2019, which is when I started doing digital art. So this is one of my earliest pieces, and this is a fan art for Fire Emblem Heroes. I'm drawing Reed, I don't know if I said that right, Alphonse and Zacharias. So anyway, so yeah, disclaimer that I am not a professional artist. I was never classically trained. These are just tips that I learned from trial and error that helped me improve over the years and helped me transition from a beginner artist to an intermediate artist. And normally I don't like to brag about myself, but I would at least put myself above someone who's been drawing for only 2 months. So yeah, so many of these tips are general and I don't go into much detail, but again, I will provide more detailed tutorials in the future. So for now, this is just a commentary. I will try my best to do timestamps in the video that are kind of relevant to the topic. Anyway, let's start with the first major issue that I see from the first sketch. So in my past sketches, and specifically this one, I had noticed that I had a lot of layers and I didn't separate them efficiently, and the anatomy was off and the line quality was off, and just overall I just didn't understand values. So let's start with the layers. Oh my god, there was 78 of them. So okay, so I know nowadays I would still probably get up to that amount of layers, but I would never have 78 layers, active layers up. I would be merging as I go. So 78 layers isn't bad for an artist. Just it depends on your art style. If you're doing a painterly style, then you're gonna want to reduce the amount of layers as much as possible to have a really nice seamless effect. And if you're doing very clean pop art, then go ahead and have as many layers as possible or as you are comfortable with. But yeah, so you can see that I had so many layers, and back then I would rather have a more painterly look, and obviously this isn't a painterly look. So yeah, and I would also separate each of these. I would separate, especially because it's a multi-person piece, I would actually separate them by actual characters. So character 1 would have his own group and character 2 would have his own group. Whereas back then I kind of just did this is the skin layer, and I do all 3 skins in that one layer. Nowadays I would actually separate them by characters. Onto anatomy, I would say that, oh my god, the head was way too big. The shoulders were non-existent. Literally the orientation of the face was just also inconsistent. You could see that the eyes are oriented forwards, whereas the nose is from a 3/4 view. So it's not consistent, and you cannot tell what way they're facing. Onto line quality. So I would say like back then I was very sketchy and messy, which I kind of actually prefer the look of like messiness. But the thing is, like, this sketchiness in this drawing was because I didn't know what I was doing. So it's just like a lack of understanding. I also personally found the line art to be stiff and heavy, and even though it was like clean, it was just kind of like, it was an eyesore to me. So yeah, I would say like thick line art isn't bad, but you just have to like know how to vary your line weight, and obviously I didn't know how to do that back then. I would say for values, it is very saturated, which again isn't bad, like especially if someone's trying to go for a digital pop art look. But obviously I wanted a painterly look, so it was not. This obviously doesn't look like a painterly painting. So yeah, there was like no variation in the amount of saturation that I put in these colors. And I would also say that my, I guess, sense of color palette wasn't really good either. I mean, there are pinks and reds, like they're all wearing like pink or something related to pink, but you can see like the background was like an ugly green. And the thing is, like, a lot of like beginner artist tutorials will always tell you to use the color wheel, and that like the complementary color is like the easiest thing you can do. And I mean, it is one of the easiest colors like palettes to do, but you have to be very careful like with your shades and like values and saturation, all that stuff. But obviously back then that wasn't what I was thinking about, so it looks very amateurish. And yeah, so that being said, I guess the number also I would say that I was way too scared to go dark with the values. And a lot of beginner artist tutorials always want people to not use like really dark values. And again, it's just, as I said before, it always depends on your art style. So I'm gonna try to like link this to just overall general advice. Is like, there's a lot of good art tutorials out there, there's a lot of good art advice out there, but a lot of it is more geared towards a certain art style. And if that's not the art style that you're trying to go for, like, it's not gonna look well when you try to mesh it with your own art style that doesn't like fit with the tutorial. So yeah, my art style is like semi-realism. So if you're really into anime, you're really into realism, then this commentary probably won't really apply to you. Or actually no, I won't say that. Yeah, so if you're going for like realism or anime, then my future tutorial probably won't be good for you, because you're probably not going to achieve the art style that you want. But for this commentary, I'm going over very general advice, which would help both, or any art style, honestly. So let's start with tips before you start drawing. For the love of God, please check like the dimensions of your drawing. So when I first did this piece back in 2019, I didn't know what DPI was, and this piece actually had a DPI of 0, which I don't know how that is possible, but it did. And like when I remember finishing it and like uploading it, I was like, why is this so pixelated? So it was like really bad. Anyway, I would also say just be very messy, very like have very scratchy lines. Who cares about anatomy? Like, no one, every professional artist or whatever, they would always say like, oh, don't have scratchy lines, like don't be scratchy or whatever. I don't know, I guess personally I have personal beef with whoever I learned that from back then. But it's not, for a sketch it does not matter. For line art, yeah, don't have scratchy lines, but when you're putting down a sketch and you're just trying to get an idea out there, who cares about all of like the technical skills that are like mentioned? Like, just try to get your idea out there, and overall just focus on like actually like your posture and everything, because that's more important than drawing. Because you do not want to be like a freaking 20-year-old with the back of an 80-year-old. Oh yeah, also during your sketch phase, keep the composition in mind, because if you are not drawn in by the sketch, you are sure not going to be drawn in when it is rendered and fully detailed in the future. So yeah, if you're not in love with your sketch, you're not going to be in love with the final piece, unless you're like god tier in line art or god tier in painting. And if you were, then obviously you're not going to get anything from this commentary, because this is supposed to help a beginner artist. And I would say yeah, that's it for drawing. Oh yeah, also if something seems off, like foundational wise, fix it now, because as I said before, when you spend hours rendering that in the future and you notice something's off, that is so much more heartbreaking to fix than to fix it when it's just a sketch. So please, like, if something seems off, just fix it now. Many times I feel like I was gonna say I was notorious, but I'm not really popular or anything, but I spend more than half of my total time sketching than actually painting, because I would prefer the foundation to be very strong, so that when I put my colors down, it's more easier on me. So on to female versus male anatomy, which I think is like the main issue of my older sketch. So when I mention female and male anatomy, I am talking in terms of biology, so like the sexes. So yeah, females and males have different biological composition. They look different, their bodies are different. So when I'm talking about female and male, I'm obviously talking about the sexes and like their features. So a lot of the main issues that I saw with my old painting and how to fix them now, so like with the shoulders and the torso, as I mentioned very early in the beginning of the video, the shoulders are just way too small, like very, very small, or I guess narrow for what's considered masculine. Now, like, anime in general tend to exaggerate the size of the head, but this is just way too much. So in my new sketch, you can actually see that I shrunk the head and I made the body wider in relation to the head. I've also emphasized like the blocky neck and the squared shoulders. And in the original sketch, I didn't really have any of these defining features, so like even if they were like buff underneath, you couldn't really tell, because the body, like the way the clothes were, they didn't really complement the body figure. So all of it, if they were muscular, you wouldn't be able to see it. And I would also say that in the old sketch, their eyebrows were way too clean. So like men in general tend to have kind of like messy, bushy, like unkempt eyebrows, or they have like very fluffy, messy, bushy brows. And women in general tend to have like groomed brows. So again, this is just like tendencies, not always. So I mean, women can have bushy eyebrows, but in general they tend to keep it clean. I would also say in the old sketch that the jaw lines are just like too small, like too narrow. They kind of look like parsnips. And like men in general tend to have squarish jaws, like large squarish jaws, and women tend to have like small round jaws. But yeah, keep in mind that these are all trends. Like, it's not set in stone. Like, if you want your character to have small jaws, all of them to have small jaws, then go ahead. But yeah, the key to all of this is just finding the balance between male and female qualities. And I would say like the hardest thing to do is to like either draw like a androgynous character, or characters with opposite presenting features, like a male with female features and a female with male features. So yeah, I would say like the key is a balance. So if you want to have a man with beautiful luscious eyebrows or eyelashes, beautiful luscious lips and hair, you better balance that out with like a bulky body, because otherwise it'll look like a female, unless you can have like very defined muscles. But still, it's just kind of like, you just have to like keep experimenting with how much can you exaggerate these features. But yeah, it's very important to learn the difference in the female and male features in order to balance them, because like, the last thing you want is someone misgendering your character, which happens to me all the time. So I've learned, so you should learn too. Anyway, improving overall like anatomy. So I would say the number one tip to do is to draw healthy looking people. Now, oh my god, I'm about to get like hated on this, but people who are generally fit, because their muscles tend to be more noticeable, and that's like key in trying to understand anatomy, because no matter how big or chubby or fat your character is, they all have like muscles underneath and bones. And I mean, unless you're drawing like a jellyfish, but in general, like everyone has like muscles and skeleton underneath. So you need to be able to understand how to locate where these muscles are and how they look like, and also just to know where the joints are. But yeah, so I know a lot of people want to draw various body shapes of all types, but if you are a beginner, do not do this. Just focus on drawing like normal attraction, like conventionally attractive people. So yeah, so drawing with the conventionally attractive people, you can't go wrong with it. You can't go wrong with drawing it conventionally attractive people, because obviously if these features show up in your character, people are going to find the character attractive, because by proxy the person that you referenced is attractive. But yeah, so a good way, back to like the muscular aspect of the body, a good way to learn muscle groups is actually to look at like bodybuilders, because you can actually see to what extent you can exaggerate these muscles. And, it's better to know how to draw like different types of people, but unless you have the foundation, the basic anatomy, and knowing like how much you can exaggerate body parts, then your anatomy is always going to look janky unless you know what you're doing. So I'm going to go over what I learned from my old drawing. There is definitely an increase in knowledge of anatomy, because the number one thing I can probably notice is like the face. So the old art has very squarish eyes, and they're kind of far apart, which is actually a stylistic choice that I liked back then. I mean, the new art, I still have like the same similar features with the, I guess, trapezoidal eyes, but it's more realistic with the sense of realism, or it's more realistic with the sense of style, or it's more realistic with a touch of style. I would also say, I guess, like the line quality or the stroke quality got better. My sketches used to be very messy. I mean, my sketches are still messy, but the way that I do my sketches now is that I generally keep it clean, unless there's like an area that I think needs to be shaded when I do start painting. So when I sketch, I actually keep the lighting in mind, whereas back then all the sketchiness was because I didn't know what looked like what. I didn't know how the hair was supposed to look and stuff like that. So I definitely got more confident in the way that I sketched. I also learned that heads are much smaller than I think they are. But yeah, in conclusion, like the one thing that I did to learn quickly was like how I learned how to draw quickly and improve really quickly was to draw realism. And I know that every professional artist actually like recommends this, because it's true, because you need to learn like obviously the foundation before you can experiment with it. So you can see it. You can see my improvement. Like, I never thought that I would be this good at sketching or drawing in general, but here I am with this level, But yeah, you can always like really tell like the difference between a beginner artist and a more experienced artist because of the anatomy. Like I notice like a lot of beginner artists tend to have like they actually have like really good sense of color, which I kind of attribute to blending modes and like easier color correction methods, and the fact that there's just like a lot of tutorials out there that teach you how to color and shade. Because a lot of like from the perspective of a newer artist such as like myself back then, I always kind of thought that most of art came from like your colors and how to shade, but honestly a lot of it is like the boring stuff, your anatomy and the composition. So you know, a lot of non-artists just don't like tend to see this. So they always see like the values, but I mean, which they are right, values are very important, but the thing that separates a beginner artist from a more experienced artist is again the anatomy. So yeah, you can have all the pretty colors you want, but it's like putting colorful, like vivid paints over like a broken building. It's like, it's nice, it's pretty, but your building's going to fall down, so there's no point in it, you know. So yeah, nothing can really replace the foundation of being able to understand the body proportions. So yeah, this is it for the video. Thank you for staying for the commentary. I know I lied. I'm a bad person. I lied about not providing a tutorial, but I promise in the future I will actually have scripted tutorials. So yeah, I definitely will be painting over this sketch in the future, and I will actually have a script for that. So yeah, I wanted to do like a weekly upload, but because of my university schedule, that will not. I'll probably just have to be only once a month or twice a month, unless I can get very good at writing scripts and balancing my time, but probably not. As you can tell, this video took forever to get out. So yeah, if you like this video, please stay tuned for this. But yeah, if you enjoyed my content, then please like and subscribe if you haven't yet, or please like get it out there. I feel so unqualified to say that, but yeah, anyway, yeah, thanks for watching. Bye.